Next up, we are welcoming back Jonathan from Open Fifth and introducing another person who needs no introduction, which is Jessica Zara from Bywater Solutions. I think that, Jessie, when you registered for Kohacon, you were the Director of Library Sales and Outreach, and you are now the Vice President of Strategic Partnerships. So congratulations on the new role. Very exciting. Jonathan and Jessie are going to talk about maximizing efficiency and streamlining workflows with Acquisitions 2.0 and Koha. And the technology is going to make that possible. If we do this. We love live demos. Oh, we plugged in? Yep.
Yeah, we're plugged in. It's showing your screen, which is one of the...
Oh, that's interesting. Wrong window. Hang on a minute. Oh, hang on. It's on the wrong screen.
What's fun is that we did practice this earlier.
Yeah, it's even better.
So earlier when we needed to kill time, it was suggested that I do karaoke, but we've since learned about the musical history behind Open Fifth's name. And maybe there are people who are better placed for karaoke than I. Well, there's alliteration, so clearly it's meant to be. I don't have any more quiz questions. Oh.
Full black pan.
What can we talk about? What's happening tomorrow? Oh, what's happening tomorrow? In the morning, there are options. There are people going on a tour of Weta, which is the studio who made some of the biggest films in the world, like Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. That is a paid tour, and I think there's like maybe a couple of spots left. And while that's happening, there is also a tour of the newly renovated and rebuilt Wellington City Libraries. They are not open to the public yet, so this is a very special and exclusive tour that our friends at Wellington City Libraries will be giving us. We'll be meeting just before 9 a.m. on Harris Street, which I would tell you how to get to if I could think of a good way to describe it. Google Maps will do that better than I. And then after that, there is the option of a self-guided tour of Te Papa, which is our national museum. It's pretty cool. There's a couple of marae in there. Yes. And I'm going to stop talking now. Bye. Oh, clap for them, please.
You can mirror the displays.
Sorry, we still have not gotten the display correct up here, even though we did practice this morning. Hi. Keep talking.
Oh, okay. And then after that, it's so then you can go out for lunch. There's lots of amazing restaurants and cafes around Wellington. I'm stopping now. I wish Jessie and Jonathan. Yay. Thank you.
I knew I should have never worked in technology.
Thank you so much for allowing us to be here today and speak with you. Thank you to the organizing committee and to all members of the Koha community for allowing us to be here and be present with you all. Jonathan and I are here today to talk about some of the work that the Acquisitions 2.0 work group has been working on for the last several months. We are fortunate to also have some of our work group members in the audience today. So Katrin, Caroline, who am I missing? That's it. And everyone's listening abroad. But what Jonathan and I will do today is talk a little bit about the history and also what we are working towards for Acquisitions 2.0. So we figured we'd start with some history, and thank you to Judith, who gave a beautiful presentation on the acquisitions at Auckland University. And we thought we would just talk a little bit about how Acquisitions has been here since day one. And over the time, we've seen a lot of new introduction into the Acquisitions module. Things like EDI or Edifact ordering, the addition of MARC ordering and bringing in those records from an outside source, robust improvements in the purchase suggestions, and then, of course, some of the vendors and connections via the APIs to bring in EDI invoicing. And then, of course, in 2021 and 2022, the addition of Koha's ERM. So over the years, we have seen some growth. So what's in Acquisitions 2.0? Well, a lot. Acquisitions 2.0 originally started out as a significant redevelopment design to rebuild what we have in Acquisitions now, and take that classic and kind of move into the next vision and future of what libraries are looking for. Originally, it was built as a single plugin, just to see what those enhancements and new features would look like. But then at, I believe, the Hackfest, it was made as a decision to move forward and just start pushing it into Koha. And so we all saw that in the 2505 release with VUE view in the vendors module with our new beautiful table that we can search and find things pretty easily. These are the members of our work group, and I just want to give a really warm hug to all of them because we spent a lot of time meeting and talking about everything from design to really modernizing the terminology so everything is consistent across the board with what we call it. Michaela has put together lots of screenshots and displays of what things could look like, which we will be sharing today. She wrote some migration scripts so we can be ready. And also to Matt, who has attended all of our meetings and listened to all of our crazy discussions about what we want to see in the future of Acquisitions 2.0. If you are interested and you're in Mattermost, there is an Acquisitions 2.0 channel. All of these documents and resources are linked in the channel, and it has all of our information that we started with, like our workflow charts. It has a glossary, and then each document there is linked out to a Google Drive doc, which just talks about some of our ideas and what we wanted to see moving forward. There's also a sandbox for testing as we move forward with some of these features.
Okay, so when we first started thinking about this in very broad terms, we were just really thinking about what's there now and what are the possibilities, what needs to change, and what can stay. So there were some things very obviously were sort of apparent that could stay, things that are in the system now that we can reuse, so things like currencies. Vendors as well, and vendors at the end of the day is a very flat file of names and addresses. So there wasn't a huge amount we could reimagine within that. But we did know that there were some things that we would like to do with the vendors, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in just a minute. So from that, we really just developed a few high-level concepts, which I'll show you a couple of screenshots in just a moment, just some of the ideas. But and from that, we produced as a plugin a very sort of broad proof of concept of some of the ideas that we were having, just to show at the 2024 Hackfest. And it was actually after that Hackfest in 2024 that we assembled the working group. And at that point, we were able to review the high-level ideas that we'd come up with, but also expand on those and throw in some other ideas as well. So some examples of that is reimagining of the sort of fund budget structures as they are today. So introducing the context of fiscal periods actually rather than years. And it was interesting to listen to your presentation yesterday because some of the things that are coming out are things that we sort of observed in that presentation. So the idea that you can have multiple fiscal periods running, but actually perhaps not alongside each other, but concurrently because of the way budgeting periods happen. And then the concept of ledgers below that, which I guess are equivalent to sort of budgets today in Koha. And then down to fund and sub-fund level, which is pretty much where we are today. And again, we've got the concept right now of baskets and orders, so reimagining those into purchase order lines, and then, importantly, the thing that's been on the shopping list for many, many years, the ability to fund individual orders to multiple funds. Yay. So we sort of built some broad ideas and tried to map out some of the workflows as they are now, but also thinking about some of the things that we'd like to introduce. So the concept of order templates to speed up the acquisitions process so that you don't have to repeatedly fill out item types and branch codes and that sort of thing. So that was important, I think. And from this, we've explored and sort of remapped this workflow diagram.
As we were building these workflows and charts, we thought about some of our key goals. A lot of pain points that we saw in acquisitions and what would make workflows a lot easier for us. One was the need for continuous orders. So we have the option right now to easier. A lot of people want a way to be able to just import an invoice and not have it connected to a bibliographic record. We have some libraries that will track things in their budgets like the purchase of a printer or toner or things like that, and they want to be able to bring those invoices into the acquisitions module to be able to track those. So you'll see a split between receiving and invoicing. We also rethought, which is really hard to wrap around, the whole purchase orders and order lines, which we now have always called baskets. And so there'll be a big change between that to lead to a little easier setup when you're creating your orders and lists and templates. And truly talk about where we want to see things go in the future with API connections and library groups to make it easier for consortiums when setting up the system.
I think importantly, we've also begun a glossary, which we'll publish as part of this, because terminology, I think, is often confusing in this, well, particularly within acquisitions. So what does an order line mean? What does a purchase order mean? So hopefully that will help clarify.
So the start of the breakdown of acquisitions 2.0 will be the funds and ledgers, which Jonathan mentioned a little bit. In our fiscal years, we'll be able to track things like the physical calendar, the financial and academic years to make it easy for users to track. Ledgers, which will of course be attached to those fiscal years, and then funds, which will be attached to the ledgers. There's going to be a lot more flexibility to do things like tracking your monographs or gifts or electronic purchases. And then you'll also have the ability to do fund allocations to make adjustments for things and have notes within each one of those. Another thing that we would like to simplify is the ability to do fund transfers and rollovers, which we have now with closing our budgets, but we wanted to have the ability to transfer money and funds between those different ledgers and funds within the system, just to make it easier if you have a little money left at the end of the year, rather than manually have to move it, you can transfer it back and forth.
And this is where fund allocations will become very important, because in effect it'll be an audit trail of everything if you're moving money in and out of funds or switching money between funds. At the minute, there's not a clear audit trail. When you're doing that, you're just updating perhaps an amount in a budget or amount in a fund. So there'll be a clear audit trail of money coming in and money going out. Okay, so I mentioned vendors, and that we weren't planning to do a huge amount to vendors, and we're not. But what you will have seen, or you are about to see in the near future, is that Matt has rewritten the vendors interface in using the Vue.js framework, and that's great. That's in there now, so you can start to look at it. You probably can't. It's too small, probably, to quite see the display. But he's made some sort of subtle improvements to the table. So things like being able to identify 90 baskets against a particular vendor and being able to click on those, and how many subscriptions are attached to a vendor. So just bringing stuff into your face slightly. He's also already completed some of this additional work, though. So there's some really nice, just small enhancements to vendors that I think will just be, just lift it slightly. So things like being able to attach to a vendor how you're going to, what their payment method is. Is it backs? Do you send them a check? Is it credit card? That sort of thing. Specific language for vendors, which will determine the notice that you send to a vendor. So, I mean, we see this with some of our international clients, where they use vendors from across the world, and they don't want to send one chasing email in English all the time. They want to send the German vendor a German notice and the French vendor a French notice. So it'll give more flexibility to do that. Library groups we're talking about more broadly as a group at the moment, and that will permeate throughout all of acquisitions at some time. But Matt has been thinking about this and working on this in the context of vendors. And then attached to the ERM component of Koha, the ability to link vendors to the data providers in ERM, but also to be able to see these ERM records from the vendor record itself. So I think that's a nice enhancement as well. So the code for all of this, I think, is pretty much written, but was held up by the rush to get the whole reimagined sort of Vue framework into 2511. So hopefully Matt will be going back, rebasing this, and will hopefully be able to get some of these things in fairly quickly in the near future.
So now we'll talk a little bit about some of the redesigns and enhancements that you'll see. You know, vendors we talked about, you should be seeing that now if you're on 2505, and some of those UX enhancements. And then for order processing, we're going to show some screenshots of order templates. So when you're creating orders, you don't have to do it from scratch. You can create templates in there that populate some of that information for you. That way, when you're ordering repetitive things over and over, it'll make it a little bit easier for you. And then we'll talk a little bit about claims management. You know, we have the ability to do claims now in both acquisitions and serials, but we thought that it would be great to have an area dedicated just to claims, to automate that process, and also be able to control and filter what claims you want to send in, and then of course have different statuses for manual processes versus EDI or EDIFACT processes within the system, and then of course batch processing for those claims.
I've just got a few screenshots from Matt here on the side of the work that he's been doing. So Again, you can see the sort of acquisitions menu bar, similar to sort of what's been going on in ERM. So here we've got the top level fiscal years where we define the actual fiscal start periods and end periods. So that's really all that's controlled within that. And then the ability to browse ledgers and funds in a table view, which is, I think, will be good. Then the ability to edit and create new ledgers and funds. So again, probably a fairly familiar template, I should think, but again, redesigned in the sort of roof framework as well. So that's great. Yeah, and there's a ledger that he's created. Okay, so some of the things that are going on in terms of purchase orders and invoicing. So Jesse's touched a bit on some of this, but one of the important sort of concepts that we've come up with is this ability to create order lists. So rather than just straight away going in and creating a purchase order and creating purchase lines, we can actually create order lists of material that maybe we're collating and building up over time, or we want to come back to later. So from an order list, there'll be an option to sort of go now, straight away in order, or perhaps sit on it for another day. So different from suggestions, but yeah, a new sort of concept really. And then, again, Jesse mentioned order templates. So I think that's going to be a massive workflow improvement in terms of being able to map out common scenarios. And, you know, we'd see this a lot in libraries where you always know that you buy 2 copies for the main library, 3 copies for the branch library. So that's important. Again, the one that's been on the shopping list for a long time, it's been in Bugzilla for a very long time, is the ability to distribute amongst multiple funds a single cost of an item, which I think is will be a great feature. I'll talk a little more about the simplification of prices in a moment, but that's something that's also on the agenda. Jesse mentioned splitting invoicing from receipting. So in relation to that, the ability to better display things that are outstanding on orders. So at the moment, it's quite difficult to navigate that screen. So the ability to be able to see everything that has been receipted or what needs to be receipted in the future and what's outstanding, and just to sort of break those up in a more logical way. And then in invoicing, big one, credit notes, obviously, ability to prorate invoices, multiple invoices per purchase order. And something that comes up, again, quite a lot in libraries, and I guess is becoming more important, is the ability to be able to reconcile and validate invoices when they're paid. So when you've got your paper invoice and you've got the total amount on the bottom, to be able to actually make sure that what's being input into the system matches what's on your paper invoice. So that sort of reconciliation. So yeah, it's just stepping back a bit. So when we first started thinking high level of this, Michaela was great. She's helped us with a lot of the mock-ups, and she was going through the existing Koha acquisitions module, and she was adding some buttons and about how we saw this was going to work. So definitely new order line sort of buttons on the home pages and that sort of thing. She's, again, imagined this sort of concept of the order line template where as you're building your order, you'll be able to select from perhaps a shared template or one that's specific and personal to you. And then thinking about the workflow when you create an item and add it to an order list, as I was saying, are you going to order it now? Do you want to add it to a purchase order for later? Or is it just there and actually you've ordered it on the vendor system because maybe you've ordered at Amazon or something like that? So trying to be thinking around all these sort of scenarios. And then to the exciting part. So one of the benefits of being 13 hours away from Matt back at home at his computer is that I sent him a message yesterday whilst he was asleep saying, "Have you got anything else for me for today?" And by the time he woke up, I woke up this morning, he did. So that was great. So what he's been working on the last few days is, as I said, most of the fund's structure is broadly built, but there's really nothing to plug in or take money out of the funds at the moment. So he's now working on the orders, the purchase orders and the order lines. And one of the requirements that we wanted is that when you're actually ordering something is to actually warn you on the very first step whether you've actually got this in the catalogue, and actually have you forgotten that you've got it in the catalogue and actually you don't want to order it. So there's his little duplicate warning. And then we've got the actual order line template itself. So if I just put my glasses on, I can see what's on the screen here. So yeah, importantly, things like continuous, or whether the order is continuous or not. So this is important in terms of subscription orders, standing orders, renewal interviews, intervals, when you might need to cancel it, and subscription periods. Again, that's something I saw in your presentation yesterday. You had a little note in the note box about the subscription period. Acquisitions method, that's again a new field. So whether you're actually ordering on the vendor website or whether it is a sort of traditional purchase order. And then if I just scroll forward, I guess these are the biggies. So the accounting details at the top here. So, and again, I will talk just in a minute about the actual pricing information, but a simplification of the sort of price input. And this area here, which will be hopefully a more simplified representation of what is being calculated. And also this, importantly here, this little question mark, which when you click it tells you why it's been calculated like that.
We spent a lot of time
talking about that.
talking about that.
And then the big reveal, the ability to split an item between multiple funds. So this is literally coming overnight. So 70% against one fund, 30% against another, or you can do it by monetary amount. So you can see this little toggle box here, percent or amount. So we can either split it by an actual typing in an amount or by percentage. So that's pretty awesome, and yeah, exciting to see more of that. Just talking about the price. So again, we had quite a long discussion about the price field because this is the price, this is the order line at the minute, and there's all these fields. Does anybody know what all these fields mean?
We spent a lot of time talking about this, how people were confused about what to even keep in some of these and what was actually being tracked.
And what was calculated?
Yeah.
And what wasn't calculated? So if you look at the schema, there's a lot of price. In fact, this isn't even all of them. There's more on the next page. But so we're trying to simplify and consolidate that. So again, Michaela's done a great job. She's been mapping the existing, working out actually what is in that field at the minute, and working out where it might fit and how to better represent it in acquisitions 2. We talked about views as well because I think Michaela identified that there's probably at least 5 or 6 different ways of representing views of data in Koha right now. So we're going to try and be as consistent as possible with the way data is viewed in other parts of the system. And this is an order line search here that you can see. Okay, just moving on to migration. So Migration is going to be a big part of this project because acquisitions data is complicated and there is a lot of it. So again, Michaela and her team have been great. They've done a lot of work thinking about this, but they've not only been thinking about this, they've actually been implementing this and testing this really almost blind, because there's not even code there behind what they're testing at the minute. So this will definitely need more testing as we as we progress, and obviously the more people we can get to help out with this kind of testing, the better. So Matt did a pretty good job of mapping where things were going in the system. So it's a lot of this sort of stuff going on here. But what Michaela's been doing is she's been running her migration scripts against her own test system and looking at where the data's, how the data's been converted, and then going back into Koha and looking at the funds and checking that the amounts actually really do match. Because obviously if they don't, we've got a big problem because it's money. So that's been great, and this will need some more testing with more sets of data as well, but it's good progress for now.
So everything that we've just talked about is kind of what our first initiative is to move forward with Acquisitions 2.0. And these are some of the other things that we're starting to think about. Library groups, which we've decided to move forward with, just having a checkbox in library groups to say, yes, if library is part of a group, they have access to this piece of acquisitions. That way, for networks or multi-branch systems or consortiums, they'll be able to distinguish between each one of their funds, ledgers, orders, vendors, and so on. Lizette talked about granular permissions, and we all agreed as a group that we thought it would be better to be a bigger conversation about where we want to see permissions go pertain to acquisitions in the future.
It's very important, though, in the concept of audit trails where the person who creates the invoice perhaps can't pay the invoice. It's a common thing that we see come up from libraries all the time, so that'd be great.
You saw a preview of the ERM dashboard in the previous presentation, and we are talking about the ability to create a similar dashboards with like charts and information about POs and order lines, so it'll be easy to see that information. API ordering for some of our larger vendors. Right now with Edifact, it's a lot of transfers via SFTP into the Koha system, and being able to bring it in via an API, and then of course support for non-bibliographic materials. So our goals moving forward are to make sure that there aren't any major changes now to Acquisitions 1.0 as we're working on 2.0. So we encourage you to come and join us at some of our Acquisitions 2.0 meetings. Again, we have a channel in Mattermost called Acquisitions 2.0. So if you are thinking about working on something or you want to get involved, we'd love for you to come join us and talk to us at our meetings. This is one of the examples which we just quickly saw, but the ability to split those funds will be tied into Acquisitions 2.0.
Okay, so just finally, really, looking forward, and I guess this partly echoes what we were saying earlier about the next 25 years, but obviously right now the acquisitions module is pretty robust and it does what it does and it works, and ideally the goal of this project is not to break it. That wouldn't be great. So there's some important things that we're very aware that need looking at. So things like the ability to continue supporting Edifact within the new model, purchase suggestions, which again are widely used. But there's things beyond looking forward that are kind of on our horizon, but maybe not quite here now. So in the EU, we're starting to see an uptake of electronic procurement, PEPOL, And I think that will grow. I mean, we're already having to use it as a company in our procurement process with organisations within the EU. Obviously, building closer ties with ERM. One of the things we explored when we originally did the funds and vendors plugin is we started looking at task management and workflow management, and Matt actually built a sort of tiny proof of concept of task management. And we probably haven't got time for that within this project with everything else going on, but I think it's very much something that we would like to explore in the future, the concept of when you create a purchase order, maybe for an electronic subscription, the person who creates, somebody creates a task in the beginning to get approval from the budget holder that we can actually order this, and then the task is passed to the next person who actually creates the purchase order, and then once it's receipted, it's passed on to the next person who then activates the subscription, the electronic subscription. So that would be a great scenario, I think, and also explore some of the other scenarios and workflows that people have within their libraries. And then just finally to wrap up, just to talk a little bit about the roadmap. The roadmap is still a little bit undefined. This is a massive undertaking, and we don't really want to break anything, as I said. But at the moment, Matt is rebasing some of the vendor stuff so that we can just get that out the way and done. And as you can see from the screenshots, he's head down at the minute with the purchase orders and the order lines and the order lists. And that's probably a big part of it. There's a lot there, and that will all need testing against the funds and the vendors to make sure the budgets are updating in the correct way. So we've discussed with Martin and Jonathan Druart a bit about how the workflow for this is going to work. So Matt has a development repository right now that he's working in, day out. And we're proposing to have a second QA repository, which Martin and Jonathan can hopefully, we can continually rebase against main and keep testing that the code's still working, because what we don't want is just keep having lots of regression and lots of having to rebase all the time. So as Koha moves on in the next year, trying to keep the work that's going in step with that. And then finally, a third repository, which will probably be the one that would be of most interest to all of you, is the one where you can actually test and look at stuff, and a sandbox behind that you can actually have a look at the code that's there and what's happening, and feedback and comment. So at the minute we have this idea that 2611, which is this time next year, will be a long-term support release version. So that potentially is a good place to draw a line in the sand, because anybody still on acquisitions 1 at that point will potentially have an option, if they want it, to stick there for a fair amount of time. So I think it's likely that anything else will come beyond that. So we're talking really about 2705 and beyond, and more stuff following. Just very finally, obviously, just talked about the foundation and funding. This is a big project, and if it's something that's interest to you, we love more funding towards the work that's going on. We could potentially get more people involved. There's more stuff that we could do with this. We can move it faster. At the moment, Matt's doing his best to focus on it, and he's working it around quite a lot of other projects that he's going as well. So we do need to sort of move it as quickly as possible. So that would certainly help. Okay, I think that's it. Yeah, I think that's where we are right now.